back, guys!
Hello again, ladies, gentlemen, and people of all gender presentations. We return to Phantasy Star Universe.
Chapter 2 opening!
So once again, we're going to get our anime-style opening here.
In a faraway...
We're just going to skip it to make things go faster.
Yeah, because...
we don't need to see it again.
Yeah. You can just refer to the previous episodes. So, 3 months later...
Chapter 2, Typical Lives! So, in the previous episode, Ethan Weber just became a Guardian.
And now we're jumping ahead 3 months, which I'm assuming is just academy training time. Oh, look at that. The stalkers put a floating camera in his apartment again. I am going to eat your hair.
Good morning, sir. Rise and shine. Master Weber, it's time to wake up.
This is pretty much how I react to people trying to get me up in the morning, too.
Who the heck are you?
Good morning, Master
I react the
Weber.
same in the mornings, too.
I am GHX005. As of today, I have the honor of being in your service.
You're way too cheerful
Let
about
me be
this.
the
I don't know
first to
about thing.
congratulate you on graduating from training school.
Thanks.
3 months of school? Damn, that's
Master Weber,
fast.
if you do not get ready soon, you will be late for orientation.
I know. Let me at least wash my face, okay?
I am GHX005, Master.
Now how am I supposed to remember that? I know. From now on, I'm calling you Pete.
Pete. Pete?
That's right, Pete.
Pete. Ha!
Understood. I shall be known as Pete, Master Weber.
Please, just call me Ethan, alright?
Your only appointment for today is the Guardian's orientation.
Oh. Yeah. That's great, except I just got here and I barely know which way is up. Wanna clue
After
me in?
3 months? Really? After 3 months, you still can't navigate a place? Okay, admittedly, that is the coolest technology. I cannot wait until we have that kind of tech.
And it's bound to happen at some point.
Yeah. It's just a matter of whether or not I'm going to be an immortal machine intelligence before then or not. So, you can just get a bit of tutorial stuff done here, but I don't know if I really need to. First field training! Woohoo! Yeah, that's the cool thing that we just saw him do. It's really cool stuff. Okay, so now we have storage capability.
Okay.
So yeah, and I'm pretty sure Pete just can store everything possible. Just has unlimited storage capacity. So if you're going to be doing crafting stuff, then you should probably use it to... Then, yeah, this is the... way to... this is the way to do it.
Oh, good.
Just stash all your stuff in there. Also, those 3 squares there are places you can put personal furniture. Alrighty. So yeah, the scenery here is pretty awesome. Not gonna lie.
And the level scaling is drastically different from ordinary RPG games.
You can just say RPGs. RPG games is redundant.
Oh, yeah, toy.
Not entirely here today, are we?
No, I mean, that's a common error.
It happens.
Like the ATM machine.
Yep.
But anyway, like I was saying, like HP will increase by like 20 every time or so, compared to like, because usually in other like turn-based games it's like anywhere from like 3 to 5 or...
Yeah, it's just a matter of different numbers. Different games use different numbers to different effect.
And the higher HP here means that the enemies are more powerful, I guess.
I'm not sure if that... It's kind of difficult to compare
like
power levels between games.
Like for example, Karg starts at level 3 with 106 health, and Hero in Dragon Quest 8, or Karg and Twilight of the Spirits are glad, and Hero in Dragon Quest 8 starts with 22 health at level 1, and the enemies will deal like 5 damage. But in Arcalad at level 3, the enemies can deal like almost 20 damage at that point.
Right, and it's difficult to compare power levels of enemies across games because they use different number systems. Each game has its own, like, internal logic that it operates by. Each game has its own set of numbers that it's scaled to. Usually games in a series will use similar number scalings. Like, just look at Final Fantasy. It's routine to have people doing, a couple hundred points of damage early on in the game.
And you start out with, like, Final Fantasy 7, you start out, like, in 700 health with Cloud.
Right. That's pretty normal for Final Fantasy. But for a game like Dragon Quest, not so much.
Although I did do some comparisons, and at level, like, 35, Gans, Volk, and Genghis all have 394 HP.
And, yeah, each game also uses different scalings.
But yet they started at much lower HP than in Arcalad. Let's see, look at...
Okay, field training. Here we go.
Like at level 9, I think Genghis has 50 HP, whereas Gans has 189.
Yep. Alright, so off we go to Peru. And we have a partner assigned. Oh, right. Okay. So yeah, this actually gives me a good chance to talk about character design again. Once we meet our partner.
Okay, so I'm actually having a little trouble understanding. Going back to the example I gave, where a level 3 Karg and Twilight of the Spirits has 106 health naturally, the enemies at that point do like 15 to 20 damage, like 10 plus damage, we'll say.
Okay.
And then at level 1 with Hero in Dragon Quest 8 with 22 max health, the enemies do like 5 damage. So if Twilight of the Spirits is having more damage done around that level, wouldn't that mean that the enemies are more powerful, and that's why you need more HP?
Not necessarily. They're scaled to the game. It's a bit like trying to compare Dungeons & Dragons with World of Darkness. World of Darkness has, that's not quite right. Like, okay, Dungeons & Dragons, you don't have very many hit points. Because at level 1. But that's because the damage numbers aren't that high. But you're still in roughly just as much danger as Karg is at the beginning of Arcalad Twilight of the Spirits. And that's
even though he has 106 health at level 3 and Hero has 22 at level 1.
Yeah. Right. Proportionally, the monsters are doing roughly the same amount of damage.
How can it be roughly the same amount of damage if 12 is like 15 and Dragon Quest 8 is like 5?
Well, it's proportionally roughly the same amount of damage. It comes out to about the same percentage of the character's health.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because like if Karg started at 22 health, he would not survive.
Right, because the enemies are doing much proportion. If the enemies were doing the same amount of damage that they would normally,
like 12 10 plus.
they would be taking out more than half of his health. As it is, if they're doing like 10 damage to his 100 as 106 HP, they're only doing about 10 to 20% of his health.
And then in Dragon Quest 8, that's
1/10
to
to 1/5 of his health. In Dragon Quest 8, if you've got somebody at 22 health and enemies are doing 3 to 5 points damage, that's roughly the same amount. That's roughly the same percentage of health.
As
that
10
you're
to
losing.
15 points of damage in Arc-Galad.
Yes, it's roughly the same. But again, it's really difficult to compare across these games because each one is operating on its own self-contained logic.
Right.
Its own self-contained set of numbers.
Like level 4, 176 HP, that takes Jessica until like level 29 to get.
Right. Again, they're completely different systems. It's like trying to compare the health systems of Dungeons and Dragons to
Well, so the only thing is because the games are.
World of Darkness.
It's because they're both turn-based. That was what really intrigues me. And that's why.
Not all turn-based games are made with the same intentions. It all comes down to design intention.
But I did notice that once Dragon Quest 8 characters get to about level 30, their HP totals are about the same as those at level 30 in Arc-Galad.
And it's because of it's because they use different scalings. Like if you graphed it out, you would see different lines curving in different ways.
And then meeting the same point, more or less.
Meeting at that same point
In
there.
later levels.
Yes. Meeting
At later
that
levels.
Not necessarily in later levels, because the scalings are different. A character at level 30 here is going to have much more hit points. It's probably going to have more hit points than a level 30 Dragon Quest.
500 plus, I think.
Right, whereas a Dragon Quest 8 character is going to have less than that.
Like Hero has like at level 30, 330
Something
300
like that.
around that area.
Okay, so actually getting back to this game now. This is a really interesting bit of world building, actually, and it will be important later. It will definitely be important later. And this is a really cool city design, though I have to wonder how the architecture on those taller buildings there with the saucers on top actually works.
So it's a complete coincidence that Gans, Volk, and Genghis have the same amount of health at level 35.
Basically, yes. And again, it's like trying to compare. It's different design intentions. It's like trying to compare the health systems of Dungeons and Dragons and the World of Darkness. Dungeons and Dragons is much more about fantasy gaming and hack and slash.
Now,
Beat the monsters.
which game were you saying it wasn't that the enemies don't do that much damage? Dungeons and Dragons or World of Darkness?
Dungeons and Dragons. The enemies typically do less damage.
So
that's because
I
you're supposed to be this heroic adventurer who fights his way through a world of monsters.
Alright, so
with the aid of his friends.
like at level 1, around what health do you have?
It depends on your class and which edition as well. But for sake of argument, I'm just going to use 3rd edition because that's what I know best off the top of my head.
Okay.
It depends on your class. So like a fighter, they'll start with 10 hit points because that's what their hit dice are, is 10-sided dice. But a wizard, who is considerably more fragile and gets much less of a physical training, generally speaking, will have 4 hit points because that's what their hit dice are. It's 4-sided dice. A rogue will have 6 because they use a d6.
Okay, so how much damage do the enemies do? Like 1 to 3?
Roughly, yes. Depending on the enemies, and if you have a DM that's a dick or not. And also, Dungeon Master, the guy running the game.
Oh, you mean like the random number god?
No, in this case, the DM is an actual person.
Oh, well you just said dick.
Yeah, if they're a dick or not. Like, a DM can say, okay, here are the enemies you're fighting, and just throw you at level 1 against a dragon.
Oh.
But of course, that's generally a really, really bad DM. Dungeons and Dragons also uses a system that ensures that enemies hit less. It matters more when you hit rather than continually hitting, because of the way the armor class system works.
You know, I think Kingdom Hearts and Dragon Quest 8 kind of start around the same health, though.
Maybe.
Like, I know that Like I know, like at level 5-ish, Donald only has like 20-ish HP.
Right, and again, he's the squishy wizard.
I remember there was a Paper Mario game, or not Paper Mario, but one of the Mario games, like where you only have like 4 hit points or 8 or something. I saw you play it one day.
Paper Mario, you start at 10 hit points, I believe. And that's because the battle system is very different. You have way more opportunities to prevent damage to yourself.
And the typical damage at that level is like what,
Like
2, 3?
1 or 2. 1 to 2.
So 1 to 2 is like 3 to 5 in Dragon Quest 8 and like 10 to 15.
Something. It's also something also worth comparing is the fact that Paper Mario has an action command system that ensures you. Sorry, lost my train of thought there for a second.
In case you didn't know, Ethan, there are multiple loops.
Yeah, we kind of can figure that out. This is yeah. Anyway, it's worth comparing the fact that Dragon Quest VIII enemies are pretty much guaranteed to hit you. In Paper Mario, you
And
have,
on the lab.
well, I'm specifically using Paper Mario here
Okay.
because there's a system in place whereas if a player is skilled enough, they can with regularity prevent an enemy from hurting them. Thanks to the action command system. Gee, this looks familiar. Ethan, put points into strength, not into intelligence or wisdom. Kind of a moron.
And ironically, his mental thing is low.
And, yeah,